After an offseason filled with hype, the OSU Cowboys proved they were ready for the big time with perhaps the biggest victory in the program's history, a 24-10 season opening win over the highly ranked Georgia Bulldogs. But the hardest thing about being on top is staying there. And OSU, ranked in the top 5 for the first time in well over 20 years, was no longer the hunter, but the hunted, as highly offensive Houston came to town led by former OU assistant Kevin Sumlin. After a great home opener in his stadium, T. Boone Pickens was ready for win number 2. But few know as well as he just how quickly fortunes can change. Still, the Cowboys and their posse were determined not to let things go up in smoke. OSU didn't turn the ball over once against Georgia. But only 3 minutes in, Kendall Hunter fumbled deep in OSU territory, and Houston wasted no time, as stud junior quarterback Case Keenum pulled the ball down and ran 16 yards for the score. Cougars led 7-0 and would add a field goal to make it 10-0 after 1. In the second quarter, the Cowboys finally moseyed toward the end zone, as Zach Robinson found Dez Bryant for the 11-yard gain, and then handed off to another great player, Kendall Hunter, for the nice 9-yard touchdown run. OSU trailed 10-7. It was Hunter's first TD of the year, and his only of the day, as he left later in the quarter with an undisclosed injury. But Houston just kept picking apart the Cowboys' defense with misdirection, movement, and solid quarterback play. When Keenan found Patrick Edwards wide open in the end zone, Houston had jumped out to a 17-7 lead. At that point, the Cougars had gained more yards on the OSU defense than Georgia did in the entire first game. But Kevin Sumlin and the crafty Cougars weren't done yet. They proceeded to bounce the ensuing kickoff right off an OSU up man and recovered before capping a 6-play, 62-yard, 1-minute, 7-second drive with a 32-yard Keenum pass to Tyrone Carrier. OSU fans couldn't comprehend what they were seeing, as Houston was stunning the Cowboys 24-7 at the half. At the start of the second half, however, things began to turn decidedly orange. On their first drive of the third quarter, Cowboys drove 62 yards in 9 plays, capped by the nice Keith Toston touchdown run from 9 yards out. OSU was down 24-14. Toston rushed 10 times for 66 yards. When Houston was forced to punt on its next drive, Dez Bryant was waiting. He fielded the punt at the 18-yard line and ran so fast, he seemed to teleport down the field. The 82-yard punt return was the longest of his career and his third for a touchdown. Dez had a good day, also catching 5 passes for 85 yards and amassing 210 all-purpose yards on the day. OSU was within 3, 24-21, with 8.5 minutes left in the third. Then, 5 minutes later, with Kendall Hunter out for the game, how about Bo Johnson's ridiculous 37-yard run for the score? OSU finally had grabbed the lead, 28-24. Johnson led the Cowboys' ground attack with 82 yards on only 9 carries. But Houston marched down the field, and after being shut down twice from inside the 1-yard line, the Cougars finally punched it in via Bryce Bell. Houston led 31-28. Bell led the Cougars with 80 yards rushing. Still, there was no quit in these Cowboys. Robinson quickly led his team down the field and found Mustang product Josh Cooper streaking across the end zone for 6. OSU led 35-31. Cooper caught 5 passes for 64 yards. That was the first touchdown of the sophomore's Cowboy career. But here's where the feel-good story of the year takes a wicked turn. Trailing by 4, Houston decides to go for it on 4th and goal from the 6. The savvy junior quarterback buys time, and a millisecond before Hugo Chinasa crushes him, he unleashes a pass that is batted high into the air by OSU linebacker Donald Booker, and who else but Bryce Bell runs under it. The Cougars bounce to a 38-35 lead with 6:42 remaining. OSU had 0 sacks on the day. Finally, with 3.5 minutes still on the clock, the Cowboys get the ball back once again and try to begin what could be a season-defining drive. As Robinson looks for his favorite target, Dez Bryant cramps up, tips the ball, and watches helplessly as Jamal Robinson takes it 26 yards the other way for the score. Robinson struggles again, going 18 for 31 for 240 yards and only 1 touchdown. Houston's junior quarterback, Keenan, goes 32 of 46 for 366 yards and 3 touchdowns. Houston outgains the Cowboys 512 to 434, and perhaps most telling, the Cowboys turn the ball over 4 times, the Cougars only twice. As unranked Houston beats Oklahoma State
45-35.
Offensively, we're starting too slow. We've got to start faster. That's 2 games in a row that we've not got things going until the middle of the second quarter and then the second half. And when you play a team that can move the ball and score points like they do, you got to start faster. And so we have to do a better job as coaches of getting our players prepared to start faster. But ultimately what it came down to is turnovers. It's the opposite of last week. We had the turnovers, they didn't, and mistakes.
No, we didn't overlook them at all. We practice for them like we practice for Georgia, and we're gonna practice. We practice for them like any other team. You know, we just came out. You know, we made mistakes. When we made mistakes, they made plays. You know, so hats off to them.
The thing we didn't do is we didn't really force the turnovers like we should have and needed to have a success against them. And but I think the biggest thing comes down to being able to pressure the quarterback a little bit better with the 4-man package.
That's, you know, it's frustrating. It's but you gotta keep rushing him. You know, you can't sit there on the line of scrimmage or something. And he's a really good quarterback, and I'm sure they'll do well in that conference.
I mean, this is just a game. He's a great quarterback. He's scrambling around and just. Everybody just try to stay on their man. It really ain't tough, but it's a game of football. We all got to work together out there.
You know, it's tough. It's you know, but it's college football, and you know, so we still have a ton of games left. We still can win the Big 12. You know, you got to bounce back the next week, and I mean, this one will hurt for a while, but you know, come Monday, I have faith in everybody that we're going to come back, you know, ready to go on Monday.
We're going to try to play 14 games a year. And our percentages, if you go over the history of any school in the country, college football, chances of winning 14 of them aren't very good. And so if you have a setback like this, you rely on your leaders, the mature players, the experienced guys, to step up and say, look, we got to prepare for the next game and get better. And then put a smile on your face and let everybody outside be upset with us, and that's what we do.
So for the second time in as many weeks, the state of Oklahoma's most highly ranked program has been knocked off its lofty perch by a mid-major team called the Cougars. 1 week after celebrating one of the program's biggest wins, OSU must now do the opposite after one of the Cowboys' more significant losses. After the game, head coach Mike Gundy insisted that the Sports Illustrated covers and the lofty rankings did not inflate his players' heads to the size of Pistol Pete. And maybe Sports Illustrated was off by 1 week. Maybe, now more than ever, is the time for the OSU Orange to come together and cowboy up. Reporting from Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater, Damon Fontenot, News OK Sports.